After a career in boxing, your father, Jimmy Anselmo Sr., opened the Little Blue Room and Mardi Gras Lounge on Bourbon Street back in the 30s. Right. How much of all of that did you get to see growing up?
Well, it was the first place I didn't get a chance to see. I have photographs. It was called the Little Blue Room. That was across the street from Arnold's restaurant in the quarter. So after that time there, he bought a building on Bourbon Street, which was the Mardi, called the Jimmy King's Mardi Gras Lounge. It was a 3-story building. In my recollection of entertainment there, of course I was 5 years old, I couldn't go there at night, whatever, but during the daytime, I would play around on the bandstand and get the drums, play with that. I remember my dad say, "If that drummer sees you up there, he'll kick your ass, boy." You know what I mean? Get over there. So that's my recollection is of the Mardi Gras Lounge, and also he had an apartment above the club on Bourbon Street, and standing out there and remember watching the people on Bourbon Street. And then after that, he had a club, an African-American club called the Big Hat Lounge. It was across from the old bus station on Canal Street.
Okay.
And he had a big bandstand in there, and I wish I knew, maybe I can try to find every now and then on the computer who played there, but I understand there's some pretty big people who played there. And then later he had a restaurant on Bourbon Street called King's Barbecue, and I used to work there as a delivery boy.
Okay.
I liked that. I was 14, 15 years old because I'd get to go into strip clubs.
Oh, okay. Nice.
And I would boast about it, all my friends in school, and
Sure.
tell them about what I saw.
Yeah.
Give me a job at your dad's restaurant. You know?
Yeah.
No, that's the oldest son. And that's where I first met Mac Rebenak.
Okay.
At one of the, because before the strip show would start, they'd have him with his band entertaining people there, and I met him there.
Yeah, I was going to ask, as a child, how much interaction you were able to have with the musicians. You know.
Well, quite a bit of, because my dad was like the king of Bourbon Street. Everybody knew my dad, you know, all the club owners, and he would, the little boy, take me in. The Famous Door, you know, I'd see some of the bands playing there, Dixieland bands. Sharky Banana's band, another band called George the Ride, the Dukes of Dixieland, and a lot of those clubs Dad would take me in, you know, not late at night, but the early part of the night. And there was also a club on Wall Street, not a club, it was like somewhat of a dance hall. It was called Tony Amarica's Parisian Room. And every Sunday they had all kinds of bands that would play there, you know, and I'd go there. And then as a young boy, I would go to a lot of the teenage dances they'd have, you know, and they'd have a lot of the band. Matter of fact, Mac Rebenak used to play at a lot of these places like Sacred Heart Dance, Germania Hall, all these other places. You heard of those before, you know? And because my dad bought me a car when I was 15, so I was lucky I can get around a car.
Sure.
You know? Wasn't a new car. But prior to that, I always wanted a motor scooter. He said, over my dead body, get a motor scooter. He bought me a car.
Yeah.
So I kind of, at that age, you know, I had a fake ID, and I'd go see Irma Thomas. She played at a club not too far from here on Gentilly Boulevard called the Dreamland or something like that. You know? So I'd kind of get around the city to see a lot of entertainment.
That's cool. Yeah. You had graduated from Francis T. Nichols High School in '63. And by '66, you've toured with the Navy, you're married, and you own a bar. And well, reading that, I just thought, man,
okay,
you grew up pretty quick.
I went into the Navy. I joined the Navy Reserve when I was a junior in high school, and my commitment was 2 years active, 4 years reserve. So after graduation, I went on active duty, and I was stationed aboard an aircraft carrier called the USS Saratoga. And I worked on the flight deck moving aircraft around. So after the Navy, I got out in kind of late '65. My brother-in-law had a club on Bourbon Street called Papa Joe's. And I worked the jam session there.
That was your brother-in-law, you said?
Yeah, Bobby Blanchett was his name. You know,
okay.
My sister, they owned that place. And the band was a hell of a band. The band consisted of Freddie Fender on bass, Little Joe Lambert on drums, Joey Long on guitar, and Skip Easterlin on the B3 organ. So I worked there as a bartender, and I made great money. I was making $200 or $300 a night
Nice.
Got my first apartment, bought a car, you know.
Yeah.
And then after that, I met my wife. I got married in '67, and I had my first club called Co-eds.
Right.
It was uptown. I had an uncle that had an amusement business, and he financed it. I bought it for like $13,000. So I was there from '67 till about '72, and I was anxious to have some other clubs. So it was an empty space a block away. So I built another club called Quasimodo's in 1972. So I had two nightclubs going, and I was doing pretty well with that. But they weren't big clubs; they were small clubs. And so I had this desire, I had ambitions for, you know, a bigger place. And
Sure.
I started seeing a few music clubs opening up, and I wanted to open up a music club because I loved music. So it was an old pool hall on Willow, which later became Jimmy's, and the owner of the place, it was called Al Pellegrini's Pool Hall. He used to stop in Quasimodo's every now and then, and he says, "You ought to buy this, you know, club from me. I got it. I'm gonna sell it pretty soon."
Now
Well,
the co-eds and Quasimodos, were those basically turnkey?
what do you mean turnkey?
They were in operation and didn't need much to continue to
Oh,
operate.
yeah, you're right. It was turnkey operation. I didn't have to renovate anything, you know.
Right.
It was turnkey. But, you know, they were small, and I was limited to what I can do. I was successful there, but not the kind of success I would have at Jimmy's. Because, you know, capacity might be 100 people at each place. So I was getting anxious. I wanted to move on, and I told myself, where are you going to be in the next 5 years? You know, I was in my late 20s. Do you want to be stuck in a little small club? Do you want to make a move? And so I made the move to Al Pellegrini's Pool Hall. So I bought the pool hall for $12,000, and I signed a long-term lease, reasonable rent, you know. And so I knew I wasn't going to be operator of a pool hall. They only had a bunch of junkies from the methadone clinic used to hang there, and it was in a pool hall. You know, I had ambitions of a music club. So about 2 weeks after that, I closed it down, and I sold my other place, both of them, and I had enough money to do some of the renovation of the property. It was an old building from like 1915.
I read that was a long, like what, a 2-year renovation
Yeah,
process?
almost that. So we sandblasted the things and everything. So in the meantime, I was living off that money and spending the money to do some of the renovation. That's when I started looking for financing to open Jimmy's. Okay, so I went to the banks. 3 of them turned me down, and then I seeked the Small Business Administration. So I went to them, and they hire a caseworker to put together your portfolio to present to them, you know, for the financing. And I guess maybe it helped that I was a veteran in the Navy and things like that. So I was requesting, I don't know what it was like about $85,000. Okay, I was going to have a grill in the club too. I haven't decided on a name yet. One name that stuck with it was calling it the Depot because it was across the street from the streetcar station.
Right.
So I went to them and had many meetings with them, and then my caseworker, I still remember his name. His name was Julius Smoke. He called me up and says they declined the loan. So I said, "Oh, look for a job, Jimmy."
Yeah.
So he says, "But what I can do is I could resubmit it at a lower price. Could you do all this work that you'd like to do, you know, to open up at $65,000?" I said, "Yes." So that's when I decided I wasn't going to have a grill. That would have cost, you know, about $20,000 for the grill and
expensive.
everything. So,
Yeah.
what they do is they don't give you $65,000. You have to have contractors that are insured, and they pay the contractors. So I had my electricians lined up, my plumbers, and carpenters and all that to do the work. So we went in there. Matter of fact, I have a lot of photographs. I'd be glad to show you the
Great.
work we did.
Yeah.
So we started the work on the renovation. So after completion, I was able to open on April 8th, 1978. And my first weekend, I had Little Queenie and the Percolators. Second night, I had the Neville Brothers.
Beautiful.
Packed the club.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the following week, I lost my profits in the first week. I had a jazz act
Yeah.
called Sonny Stitt, a famous saxophone player. And the reason why I booked that, because I had some people from some teachers from Loyola. They were in charge of the school band right there. They were up on all the progressive jazz bands, and they talked me into booking that. And it was a big mistake. So I lost the money.
That's a bummer. Lesson learned, huh?
A lesson learned. So a lot of the shows that I did back at the beginning was I did door deals because I didn't have money for the guarantees. And another story I'd like to tell you also is my mother. For me to get the loan, I had to show like $15,000 that I had in the bank. So my mother borrowed $15,000 so I can show the SBA that I had that.
Gotcha.
One other thing my mother helped me. The day I opened Jimmy's, I didn't have any money. She lent me the money to put in the cash registers for the bank.
Nice. It was that close, huh?
It was that close. So
Yeah.
I started getting a lot of these new wave bands. They were willing to do it for the door. You know, bands like the Normals, Lenny Zenith, and then I didn't seek out any national acts. I didn't really have the money to pay because these national acts you have to send them half the money in advance. And my first national act was Asleep at the Wheel, and everybody talked them up that they do really well, and I did really well with them. I was able to book them without sending in a deposit. They kept asking, "Where's the deposit?" So I made
It's in the mail. It's in the mail. It's in the mail.
So I was kind of riding the skin of my butt, whatever. Okay, so that paid off really well. And then once I started saving a little money up, I could start booking some bigger names.
Yeah.
In the business. But I was very careful how I did that because, you know, I didn't have a lot of money, you know. And also I lived real close to the club to be on top of things. When I first opened, I had an apartment that was about 3 doors down. And I would use that for a dressing room for some of the big bands, you know, like the Neville Brothers, the Sheiks and everything. And
Sure.
another national act I had was Muddy Waters, and I used that for the dressing room there. So my lease was running out, that apartment. I was looking around for apartment close by because I always, it was important for me to be on top of things. So a friend of mine said his dad had a trailer across the lake. He said, "Let's put a trailer in back of the club and you can live in the trailer." I said, "That's a great idea."
Yeah.
And I saved a lot of money by doing that. And hooked up the electricity from the club. I ran a plumbing line to the trailer. And I lived in the trailer for about a year.
Yeah.
And I used that, let the bands use that for a dressing room also. And
Sure.
then, but it wasn't legal to have a trailer in New Orleans in the back of a club.
Right. By any means necessary, though,
So
right?
code enforcement came by and they said, "You got to move it." They gave me $30, 30 days to move
Yeah.
it. So I sold it and moved it out. Then I found another apartment close by.
But you got to do that for a year before they came by and said something about it.
Yes,
Fantastic.
right. So it was very convenient. And I was saving a lot of money by doing that.
Sure.
So, then there was a lot of competition I had to compete with, and I managed to do pretty good, you know, because I was very wise with my money, how I handled things.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of these national acts, if I didn't, I would negotiate to make sure it was reasonable that I can afford to do them, you know, because they'd always ask for this much and it would come down to this.
Gotcha.
So, and then whenever I had any leverage, I would use that. At one time, Tipitina's had closed. This is back, I think, maybe in the 84, 85, you know what I mean? So I was like the only major music club around the city. And one of the episodes I remember was Greg Allman wanted to play the club doing New Year's time, okay? And he was asking something like $14,000. And I told the agent, said, "Well, I don't give guarantees." He said, "This is Greg Allman." I said, I know, but, you know, I'll be glad to have him play for the door.
Yeah.
This is Greg Allman. I said, no, that's all I can do. So a couple of days later, they called me back. They said, okay, we'll do it for the door 100%. I said, no, I can't do it for 100%. I have to pay production costs, security, sound equipment, and all that, so I'll do it for 80%. So they agreed on doing it. They played the club. He made $15,000. We rang up $15,000.
Nice.
So it worked out good.
And he had approached you to do the show?
Yes. Well, his agents approached me.
Oh, okay.
So I was like only the major club around
Sure.
at the time.
Yeah. Wow. In the beginning, you hadn't had experience with booking music acts or running a club that was mainly a music venue. What was the draw? Was it just that you've just felt like that was a way to expand commerce in general?
I wanted to do that. First of all, I love music, and that's what I wanted. I wanted a successful music club, and I learned, and I wanted to learn everything. A lot of these clubs, they might have hired somebody that was a booking specialist.
Sure.
I booked everything because I wanted to learn how to do it.
Right.
And and I used to be a bartender too. So if I had to, I'd be the bartender, which some nights I was in the beginning. I used to have James Booker play every Wednesday night. It was James Booker. I put a piano close to the bar, that way I could black out the rest of the club. It was a pretty big club. And it was a Booker night, and I was a bartender. So in case I had to fire a bartender, I can go back there and take over.
Sure. It helps to know the business.
Yeah, right. And it was experience I learned on the run. I don't know how to book everything. I got pretty good at it. I could have got a job booking entertainment if I wanted to.
Sure.
Because I felt like if I was going to roll the dice, I'm going to make the shot, the call. And then, and also a lot of things I realized as, things I didn't need, First of all, I didn't need a huge stock of liquors, So it's not a regular bar. People are coming there for the entertainment. I'd have your major brands, like Stoller Schneier, you know what I mean, and a bar vodka, but I wouldn't have a big selection of vodka or bourbons and all that. I didn't need all of that. If people didn't have it, they'll drink something else. And also, I didn't take credit cards. I had an ATM machine there because that slowed us down. I wanted to be fast and efficient. I had fast bartenders, and that would slow us down. And also, big nights, I didn't need tables and chairs. I could fit more people without tables and chairs.
Sure.
I'd put them out in the back of the club.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Did you become more personally vested in it as time went on? And I'm not saying that from a business aspect, but in the beginning, you're looking to expand your business. You like music, so it makes sense to open up a venue. But in essence, you're expanding your business. And throughout the years, you start getting better at booking acts and getting more national acts to the club.
Right.
Did it kind of fuel the fire? Were you really? You must have
fueled
been
the fire
thrilled.
to get more big bands.
Sure.
In there. Of course it did.
Yeah.
And not only that, I built up a reputation for a good venue to play at. It made it easier for me because I didn't have to call them; they'd call me.
Right. You said Greg Allman called you. Well,
and all these
his
top
reps
agents,
called you.
you know what I mean, that I dealt with. I had people like Huey Lewis in the News, Monterey Peninsula. So all the major agents handling all the music business knew who I was.
Yeah.
They contacted me.
Man, that must have been fantastic.
Yeah. It was.
Yeah. You had Professor Longhair perform there back in '79.
Yes.
And I'd already had a style unto his own in every aspect, not just playing, just his personality, his vernacular, everything. Did you get a chance to spend some time with him?
A little bit of time with him, not a whole lot, but he had a nice personality. It was nice to deal with.
Yeah.
So.
He's in that book I gave you a copy of because he was.
Absolutely. Dr. John.
Dr. John was kind of his
I'm
protege.
good friends with his daughter. His daughter has. She doesn't like to call it a museum. She calls it Memories, Professor Longhair House of Memories.
Yeah.
And she has events over there. we celebrated Dr. John's birthday one year there.
Wow.
And that was fun. We had Ricky Lee Jones was there.
Yeah.
Some of the Neville brothers, Deacon John. You know, it was like about 20, 30 people, top names in the business. They were all there.
Sure.
And it was very intimate and nice.
Yeah, that's fantastic. He was coming next. I was going to mention Dr. John because he was Professor Longhair's protege. I saw that Dr. John had played Jimmy's in 80, I think, 1980.
Right.
By that time, he was 25 years into his career, so I mean, he was really starting to become a big name artist. Do you recall how that night went?
It was, you know, quite successful, but he was one of the people that I targeted simply because I loved his music. His music was kind of like, I look at it now as the soundtrack to my life, okay?
Sure.
His music. Loved his music, and he is one of the people that I really wanted in Jimmy's, and I didn't overpay him, but yet I paid him enough where we made money off the show.
Mm-hmm.
And he played a few times. I remember some of the things I had to do when he played there. I had to get someone to drive him around like a limo. Not a limo, I just rented a Cadillac and had a friend of mine, Jerry Brock. In fact, he's the guy that created WWOZ Radio.
Mm-hmm.
And he'd do a little part-time work like that. So I had him as the chauffeur for Dr. John.
Nice. That's funny. I keep mentioning the book. I really enjoyed it so much, but in this biography of Mac Rebennack, Under a Hoodoo Moon, it describes a breakdown in the ecosystem that existed between the city and live music venues in the 70s. Apparently there was some friction caused by the DA's office, and it started kind of manifesting itself by breaking down the relationships that these venues had with people that sustained them. Not just the crowd, but people working the street and people in their area. Have there been times in your career where laws or ordinances made doing business difficult for you?
So there was things that happened. I remember I would hire New Orleans police on big nights to work details, okay? And then I never had really much trouble. Maybe that helped keep the trouble off. I mean, and then I think they had a new police chief came around and he stopped that. And he said, no, we don't want that. They cannot play ABOs, alcoholic beverage outlets, okay? Because it might corrupt them.
Okay.
And I thought that was stupid. I mean, why would I hire, if I was doing something illegal as a club owner,
Sure.
with drugs or something, why would I hire a policeman
Yeah.
who could see all of that?
That's a good point.
And I had to hire other security, didn't work out as well. There was a couple incidents, but, you know, I don't want to really talk about that.
Sure.
Yeah.
For the most part, it was amicable.
Sometimes they would give me a rough time because of sound.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it might be too loud.
Sound ordinance.
And of course, I didn't like it when they changed the drinking age from 18 to 21.
I remember that.
Yeah, that made it really difficult, and I've always been opposed to that, and I was with a group of club owners that were lobbying against that. You know, we always said, if you're old enough to die for your country, you're old enough to have a beer.
That's right.
You know, it was horrible, you know, so
Yeah.
we had to be really strict about it. I kind of cut into my business a little bit, you know.
Sure.
So I
Yeah,
didn't
you make the best of
particularly
it,
like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
What I didn't like about it just gave, if the police wanted to, they could probably bust any club at the time, maybe having somebody that wasn't 21.
Sure.
You know?
That wasn't easy.
No, it wasn't easy. So.
Yeah. I've noticed you and I were talking about set list, where you could find
Right.
the show bills over the years, and I know you had punk bands like the Misfits and the Dick Nixons, but in the early '90s, your club began seeing a heavier side of metal: Nine Inch Nails, Anthrax, Testament, Superjoint, Ritual.
Yeah.
I was wondering what prompted that. Were you just following the pulse at the time?
I just wanted to be a club for doing every genre of music.
Yeah.
You know, which I was. Did reggae. I got real popular for reggae, and I wanted to do it all. And I did some hip hop, but I stopped it because there was a little bit of violence involved in that.
Mm-hmm.
So, and but I did it all. except jazz. That didn't sell.
It didn't sell too well.
It didn't sell
So that
too
was never
well.
again after that? You didn't do anymore?
No. Unless I knew they were going to draw a big crowd and the price was right. But
Sure.
jazz doesn't draw.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, it does.
This was, were these shows strictly on the weekends? How were you booking?
No, my booking was, sometimes I might be open 3 nights a week, 4 nights a week, or whatever, when I had a good booking.
Yeah.
And if I didn't have a booking, I would close.
Close down.
Right.
Right. Takes care of overhead.
That made it simple. Why open? You don't have anything to open with. I'm a music venue, not a bar.
Yeah.
You know.
That's right.
So, a quick story to tell you on that, because being popular, all the new bands, the local bands, would all want to play there.
Mm-hmm.
And they'd call, and I'd give them my little speech about you have to have a following. The first thing I would ask is, how big is your following? And because I would have a test time on the weekdays for the band, a night that I didn't have anything else, Tuesday, maybe a Wednesday, and I'd specify that, and also I had a
test time. By that you mean they would come out and do a show in the middle of the week to see how it went?
To see how it went, exactly. I would emphasize you got to have a following. Of course, they'd lie to you,
Of course.
They'd come in there, and I had a routine where I always lived close by, 5 minutes away, and I tell my bartender, if you get slammed, give me a call. And a few times they got slammed, One of the bands was Metal Rose, okay?
Mm-hmm.
They played there, and they drew 300 people on the test Wednesday. So then I would move them up for a weekend, and that would be like, maybe a weekend band.
Yeah.
But other bands would, I'd ask them, and they'd always tell me this. I'd say, well, where's your following you said you had? They said, well, when does your crowd get here? And I'd go, no, I don't have a crowd. That's why I booked you.
Right.
If I had a crowd, I wouldn't need a band.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Jukebox would suffice, right?
Of course, they wanted to get in, so
Yeah.
and that happened.
For the out-of-town acts, the national acts that you would have come and play, and I didn't know how to word this exactly, but were you able to kind of show them some Southern hospitality or give them a feel of what the city was about in a short time here?
Yeah, exactly. I'd always try to have a nice welcome to get them to like me, get them to like the club, and where they felt really comfortable there. Several groups I'd have maybe a little party for, or a nice meal for, Fabulous Thunderbirds, I'd have a nice little meal at my apartment. I'd for them, they'd come over there and eat during the daytime. Another band, Muddy Waters, I had a friend of mine cook them some New Orleans style food, shrimp etouffee and gumbo and all that, and they loved it.
Sure.
And the other ones, they'd have a buyout or a list of things that you had to provide them with,
Okay.
And but I think with some of the stories, I remember David Allen Coe. You heard of him?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he'd play there, and one of the times, a couple ladies that were big fans, they asked if they could, do cook some New Orleans style food, for the band and all, instead of me getting something maybe to go, whatever. So yeah, and what a character he was. So they had some kind of rice dishes and good food. So David Allen Coe comes by and he looks at the food. He said, "Man, I don't eat that gook food."
What?
He says, "I want some prison food," because he was in prison.
Yeah.
I want some prison food. Okay, so there was a little drugstore that had like Salisbury steak and gravy. I brought him over there to eat.
Did you?
Yeah.
Wow.
He said, "I don't eat that gook food." The band ate it. They loved it.
Whatever works, huh?
Whatever works,
That's so funny.
Yeah.